Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
Well, hello. We are here today and we have with us Sibongile Ngako. And Sibongile is a Harvard-educated corporate financial technology and compliance executive who leverages her expertise and background to help empower women professionally, personally, and financially. Sibongile believes that multifaceted women can accomplish tremendous things with compassionate support. She uses her expertise and authenticity to empower women in all aspects of life. Sibongile focuses on promoting inclusivity in the workplace as an ally and advocate of female perspectives. So welcome to Earrings Off.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We look forward to today's discussion because any information that we can share with women, with our audience, which puts them in a better position financially, thus making them a bit more powerful to make independent decisions. We are all over that.
That's
so
right.
Again, thanks for joining us today. So we're going to jump right in. Sibongile, talk to us a bit about how to build generational wealth as a woman.
Yes. So I find that paying yourself first is so important. That's something that I've talked about in my own podcast and just generally. My mother always told me that when I was growing up, and I never quite knew what that meant, frankly, like how do I practically apply that? But when I became an adult, I realized that that means a few things. One, are you leveraging savings? Are you leveraging 401k plans if you have an employer-sponsored plan? What are some of the ways that you can basically stash 10 to 20% of your money, of your paycheck, such that you're not even seeing it to be able to spend it? It's actually accumulating kind of passively, quote unquote, I'd call it. And you'd just be surprised how that kind of tactic can help you accumulate money over time without really having to think about it or without really having to feel the absence of that money because you're getting it to your checking account and then having to take a separate step of putting it into savings or money market account or some such thing. The other thing I think about in terms of generational wealth is just keeping an eye on your money. And I mean that, frankly, in all respects, right? So if you do have debt, if you do have credit cards, are you being charged the correct APR on your credit cards? What are the APRs on your credit cards? That's particularly important when it comes down to paying down debt. You want to always start with the highest interest debt first. But even in other aspects, are you checking the balances in your various accounts? Are you making sure that no fraud is happening, especially now with all this tax and, so many things can go wrong, whether, by some bad actor or by the banks themselves. Banks make mistakes. So are you looking at your balances on if you have lending products that have rewards, are you getting the, points that you're supposed to? So just really having the mindset of keeping an eye on your money in all respects, I think can really serve women in particular well. And even more so if you have a joint account with a spouse or domestic partner, if you're contributing money to account, are you fully aware of how that money is being spent and how it's being allocated? And then build a freedom fund. And so I call this, and this is kind of linked to paying yourself first. I view the purpose of paying yourself first is freedom, right? It's so that you can, make decisions without being encumbered by debt, without, having to think about the finances of your decisions necessarily, as the only guiding factor. So build that freedom fund, which is basically just my moniker for, an emergency fund, savings, however you want to call it, money that you can readily access in the event, not just for emergencies, but in the event that you want to make a career change and
Right.
you want to make a job change, or you want to make some other decision that's in your best interest or your family's best interest, without having to say, gosh, I can't do that because I need the next paycheck.
Right.
So in my mind, building that generational wealth and having that mindset is paying yourself first, accumulating that money so that you have, and certainly investing it when you get to that point when you're ready, so that you have that wealth to pass on, and just really being mindful and intentional about how you accumulate and spend your money.
That's very good, because I tell you, as you were talking, I was thinking years ago when I took a position, the lady over me was an African-American female, older than I was. And I'm telling you, she probably, when I think about it now, she probably broke some kind of HR rules, but she was adamant about my check and me putting away money, because she was all up in my business. She was, I mean, worse than a bill collector about it. She talked to me about it all the time. She even had a professional come in that I didn't know was coming to sit down and talk to me about my finances and the fact that I should maximize every benefit that they were offering me, and that I would get used to this money not being in my check if I never saw it. And to this day, I just thank her for caring enough to be inappropriate, acting against HR rules, all up in my business, because she cared for me as a young professional woman. And it made such an impact in terms of the decisions that I made later, because I didn't grow up in a family that was a topic we talked about. That was her caring enough to share her knowledge. And when I wasn't getting it, she overstepped to make sure that she brought in a professional who could better explain what she was trying to get across to me. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. So what are the top 5 financial challenges women face, and talk a little bit about how to overcome them?
Sure. So obviously there's a lot of discussion about the wage gap right now.
Yeah.
Even in 2022, women are still making only 84% of what men make. And when you look at that in terms of race, it's even more staggering, frankly, and sometimes a little discouraging, if I'm honest.
Right.
So the wage gap, certainly, I would say career progression generally, women tend not to be promoted as frequently as men. And obviously that can cut into financial security, financial independence, parenthood, motherhood. Often the burden of that falls more so on women than on men, and that can also have a career impact. So I would say that's another challenge that we have. Also, I think there's a tendency for women to be conditioned really to make do. And so that inhibits us in terms of asking for what we want, whether it's financial or otherwise, and can also inhibit our success, even at work, when, if our male counterpart would ask for the resources he needs or ask for the tools that he needs, and we're not doing that, that can also have both a professional and financial impact. And then finally, I would say just generally confidence. I saw a statistic that only 14% of women feel knowledgeable about investing. And so I think there's a big kind of confidence gap, frankly, in terms of, being comfortable, not just accumulating money, but investing money. Sometimes we're afraid to ask questions even. And I think, frankly, all of that gets addressed by really knowing your financial and professional worth. So this is something I talk about a lot. And that is, empowering yourself to make good decisions on your own behalf, but also just putting a premium and being really intentional on your own financial independence and your own financial autonomy and your own financial security. I think, some of these things are societal, frankly, and it's going to take a longer time to overcome. But I think if we as women empower ourselves to educate about investing, to, progress our own careers in a way that's, dare I say, ambitious or, just aggressive, for lack of a better word, not, but to feel empowered to be able to pursue our own financial and professional health and independence. That will go a long way in helping women overcome challenges that we face that are both financial and professional, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tell you, this topic today is it's always important, but I think even more so for me today, it's fresh because recently I know of a young lady who's, well, in her 50s and her husband died, leaving her with 4 children. And she's not worked outside the home. And there is a community rallying around her to try to support, but that's a lot. And now she's going to have to navigate a whole new world, not only in terms of being a single parent, but she's not earned an income outside of the household. That these are, certainly important information, because so many times we're taught as women that we're being selfish if we are aggressive, if we do pursue, our career. And at the end of the day, you have to be able to earn some type of income, or at least have access to money, because that the reality is things cost, and you're going to have to be able to, look out for your family and look out for yourself. So yeah, when I heard about that recently, it's just devastating. So yeah, thank you for that. Talk to us a bit about the impact on your financial health when you succumb to the temptation to prematurely inflate your lifestyle.
Yeah, so living within your means is just kind of a motto, right? It's like to financial independence, to generational wealth, to just starting out on the right foot in life, because there's a big temptation, frankly, especially with social media.
Oh my, yes.
So much more than we used to 10, 20, 30 years ago. And, have illusions of grandeur and aspiration that, I want that Gucci thing, or,
right.
label thing, floats your boat. But you have to think long-term, right? You have to think strategic, and you have to think long-term. And I always say financial independence is strategy, not chance. It's a choice, not an accident. And so, it's kind of pay me now, pay me later. You can certainly indulge in certain things, but you have to always be thinking of what impact is this having on my financial health? If I have an emergency, will I be able to fly to see an relative, or will I be able to take care of the leaky roof? And know that everything you do, including how you spend your money, has its consequence. So I think if we as women, but just people generally, stay mindful, that kind of grounds us in reality and helps us resist those temptations of things that are flashy. And the reality is, look, I see finances as an ebb and flow. And so there may be things that you prioritize. You want, a vacation, and you save up for that vacation.
Right.
You plan for how you're going to pay for that vacation, or you want to treat yourself with a spa visit, or you want to, treat yourself with a nice bag, something like that, whatever, wherever you find your bliss. It's not that those things are completely off limits or out of bounds. It's just that you have to be thoughtful and intentional about those things, and not, assume that you'll always be able to do them, but see it as an ebb and flow of saving and spending. That's how I think about it.
Now I'm starting to feel better about the savings I have for my Tesla.
On the right track, Teresa.
So you mentioned earlier fiscal autonomy. What do you mean when you reference fiscal autonomy, and especially as it relates to women?
Yes. So really what I mean by that, Teresa, is financial independence.
Okay.
But how do we achieve financial independence? And by financial independence, I mean a few things. One, are you empowered to make decisions about your money, period? or are you, do you have to succumb to somebody else's influence on that? But then also, are you able to put yourself in a position where, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, you don't have to make major life decisions on the basis of whether you have enough money in the bank, that you have that freedom. And it's a process. Like, it takes a while to get there. And so it's not an overnight thing, but it's really about how financially independent are you? Are you empowered to make decisions? And can you make life decisions that are your best interest without having to excessively worry about, the economic impact of it? And, ultimately, it's all with the goal of being able to live off of passive income, in your retirement, whenever you choose to get to that state. But it's really about, autonomy of your financial decisions and your financial life generally.
Nice. Thank you for that.
How did your upbringing impact your views on how to be a successful financial advocate? Talk to us a bit about that.
Absolutely. So it's one of those things where you learn partly by osmosis, not what not to do. And then kind of figure it out. I think a lot of folks just find themselves in that situation, frankly. So, I'm born and bred in New York, came up in a middle class family where my mother was the breadwinner, 2-parent household, but mom was bringing home most of the bacon. And we should have, as an only child, and, by all accounts, we should have had enough money to live a comfortable lifestyle. But when I talk about living, within your means versus not your means, I think my parents fell victim to that. So at one time we had 5 cars. They were 2 parents, 1 child, 5 cars. At one point, we had very high interest debt in the form of home equity loans and lines of credit from predatory lenders, which were rampant, especially back then. It was really an instance of my parents not living within their means, not prioritizing. And that had a big impact on me because, especially as an only child of that situation, I felt guilt, I felt shame. I felt like it was my fault that they were in this economic situation. If I wasn't around, they might have been better off, that kind of thing. And it really gets in a child's psyche, frankly, and how you see yourself. And so I think, I've been working since I was 13, so below the legal age. I was a counselor at a computer camp, but I think what the effect that had on me is that it instilled in me a need to be financially independent, to be financially stable, and again, to be thoughtful, intentional about how I spent my money, how I accumulated my money, but also how I spent my money. And certainly as a mom now, I'm a mom of 3. So that is just paramount in terms of, having the goal of work and wealth accumulation, being able to have security for my family and pass on that generational wealth that we talked about earlier.
Wow.
Yeah.
That Sibongile, how, when you do your financial counseling or you talk to people, what I want to know is, what's the typical resistance that you see when you're working with people?
I think so. I don't work, just for full disclosure, with people directly from a coaching standpoint. I see myself more as an advocate and empowerment and financial standpoint. But with that said, I do think the biggest hurdle, because it's funny, I had a financial coach on one of my recent episodes, Chiante Jones, who just to plug her, Dollars and Change financial coaching. And I think we were talking about that it's confidence. It's like a mindset, right? So a lot of times it's not lack of money per se, or lack of income, or lack of funds that gets women in particular. It's this mindset of, not feeling confident, not knowing what to do, not understanding how to budget. So what I say, and what she and I were talking about, is that budgeting obviously is key. If you're finding that you don't have enough money just to cover your basic expenses from month to month, take a look at your money and take a look at how you're spending it, because 9 times out of 10, it's a budgeting issue. It's not that you need more money. That could certainly be the case. It's a budgeting thing. Sorry, Lou, go ahead.
Well, and what I've found with people is that because the budgeting is intimidating, or because they know they don't have enough money at the end of the month, they ignore it. that doesn't make it go away. It doesn't make it any better because you don't want to deal with it. And I've seen that in people. Yeah.
I think my parents and my mother especially, frankly, fell victim to that, where, it was so daunting and so overwhelming. That was like the ostrich way of budget management, which is just put your head in the sand and pretend like it's not happening. But to your point, Lou, that doesn't make it go away. That in fact makes it worse. And it actually makes you feel more out of control because you don't have a handle on what's going on. Then it feels like it's spiraling out of control. Whereas if you have that mindset and make the decision to say, look, I'm going to take control of my finances. It's going to be murky. It's going to be ugly. I'm going to wade through. And I've certainly had times like that in my adult life when it's
so have I. Absolutely.
Right. It's like, you know what I mean? Where, you don't know how you're going to make it happen, but just the act of taking control of your finances in and of itself, that first step can just do wonders, really.
Well, I think what you said about, sometimes it can be intimidating. And so people sometimes want to put their head in the sand, but also as women, even if you, so how do I put this? But, if you're with a man or you believe that you're financially set, you need to make sure you have access to some funds. I am older than both you and Teresa, and I have seen some things with women who have totally relied on men believing that they've got everything taken care of. Sometimes it's been okay, but I have seen some ugly things.
I believe it. I mean, even in on TV, like you turn on Netflix, you can probably find movies based in life where you see this kind of thing play out all the time. And that is also what I mean when I said keep an eye on your money earlier. If you are sharing a household with someone and there are accounts that your household is relying on, you should know what's going. You should know what's happening.
That's 100%.
Right. You should absolutely know what's going on. You should absolutely know how money is being spent. And if you're not comfortable with it and you feel safe doing so, you should speak up and say something and try to get a hold of the situation.
Right. Yeah. So thank you. Just very good, solid information. And what's the name of your podcast? Because I want to make sure we give a shout out to that as well and encourage people to go there and visit.
Yes, thank you. It's Fem Power You with Sibongile Ngako.
Okay. Wow. And we will be sure and include that. Do you have any parting words for our audience? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, I would just say that this whole discussion around finances, money, financial independence, it's daunting. It's scary. And I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't. But it's incumbent upon us as women to take the reins and try to overcome that feeling of fear, because you may find that once you get into actually having better control of your finances, it's not quite as scary as you thought it might be. It's just the idea of it that was scary. So if you feel scared, if you feel afraid, that's all normal and that's fine. The important thing is to take that first step and get control of your finances and move your way step by step towards financial independence.
And it's never too late, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Thanks again for being with us here today at Earrings Off. It's certainly been great information, and we so appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to talk with us. So you take good care.
Thank you, Lou. Thanks, Teresa.